to socio-economic development. So I'd like you to shed some light for the benefit of listeners at home. What exactly is value-added tax, and what benefit is that to socio-economic development?
Well, let me begin by saying that tax, simplicity, is the money that the government collects in a contemporary age. It is the money that the government collects from a subject for the purpose of running the government, providing basic amenities, road, water, and what have you, that the government has to provide in form of social services to the people. All over the world, as of today, tax is the surest way of generating revenue for any government. Although there are other means of generating revenue, but the bulk of the revenue generated by any government is through tax. And when you look at the advanced countries, most of the grand strides they have attained, they have made, is because they have, a very good tax system. They don't joke with it. In the US today, you can get away with killing someone, but you cannot get away with evading tax, making away with their tax. In fact, the way the Supreme Court of the United States of America couched it, it said tax is like the blood flowing in their vein. So once you don't pay, it is like you are denying the state, that livelihood, the ability to live or to sustain itself. So when we now look at value-added tax, in Nigeria today, the same way it is all around the world, value-added tax is like it's a sale tax. They call it sale tax in some countries. They call it value-added. In fact, in Nigeria, before we changed it to value-added tax, it was initially known as a sale tax. And it is basically a tax imposed on commodities, goods and services. Goods in the sense that if you are selling goods that are vatable, by vatable I mean the value-added tax are specify the goods and services that are liable to value-added tax. So we call them vatable goods and services. And there are some goods and services that are not vatable. For example, agricultural products, for example, pharmaceutical products, they are not vatable because we want these things to get to the people at the grassroots and at minimal cost. So such things, they are not vatable, but we have a lot and host of others that are vatable. So once a good is vatable, then it is required. Presently, the rate is 7.5%, that 7.5% be paid in addition to the cost of procuring such goods and services. And this is to be collected by whoever is selling such goods or is offering such services to be remitted to the government, to the appropriate agencies of the government. Now, we need to understand from the beginning here that tax matters, when it comes to the issue of law, it's a very serious matter. In the sense that when it comes to tax issues, tax is basically statutory. What I mean by this is that there is no intendment in payment of taxes. You cannot say no. Let's look at it this way. You cannot say, but this man is rich now, he should be paying tax now. Then the question is, what tax? Any tax now, he should pay something. You can't intend that because somebody is rich or because he has income, he must pay tax. No. Before somebody will be liable to pay tax, there must be a statutory provision. There must be a valid law imposing tax on such a person or on the services he's offering. Tax could be levied on an individual, for example, in the form of personal income tax. That is the income that an individual is making. As long as you have an income, you are working somewhere, either private or public, you are making some money, so you are expected to pay some taxes, which are in form of personal income tax. Tax will also be targeted at, not the person now, but at goods, like in the case of value-added tax. That tax is focused on goods and services. So, and as long as you sell goods or you provide services that falls under the vatable goods and services under the Value Added Tax Act, then definitely you have to pay. The first Value Added Tax law we had in Nigeria was in 1993. It was in form of Value Added Tax Decree. That was when the military government were there, Babangida, at that time. Over the time, in 1999, we entered democracy, just like you said that today is World Democracy Day. Now, a democracy, military were no longer ruling us. So most of those laws, by virtue of Section 315 of the Constitution, which is the saving provision of the Constitution, converts all of those laws that were made by the military to which are in form of decrees to acts. So that's why we call it Value Added Tax Act now, because it has metamorphosed from being a decree into being an act now. Now, the provisions of that particular act provides that there shall be imposed, 5% before, but by virtue of the Finance Act 2019-2020, it has been, jacked up to 7.5%. So as of today, once you sell goods and services, maybe I should just quickly run through some goods and services that are not vatable. For example, all medical and pharmaceutical products are not vatable. You don't pay tax. Yes. If they do a printout for you and you see VAT there, then it is wrong. You should object to it immediately because they are not vatable. And same for basic food items. You buy gari, you buy donut, all these foods in the market, they are not vatable. You buy books and educational materials, they are not vatable. Baby products are not vatable. Fertilizers, locally produced, agricultural and veterinary medicine for farming machinery and farming transportation equipment, they are not vatable. Any goods you are exporting is not vatable. You don't pay VAT on them. Plant and machinery is imported for use in exporting in processing zone. In export processing zone, they are also not vatable. Plant, machinery, equipment, and tractors, all of these are not goods that are not vatable. And when it comes to services too, medical services are not vatable. For example, you go to an hospital to take care of yourself. After the end of the day, they say your bill is 10,000 naira and you will pay VAT off. It is wrong. They can't ask you to pay VAT because medical services are not vatable. Services rendered by community banks, by people's bank, yes, by people's bank, by mortgage institutions, they are not vatable. Plays and performances conducted by educational institution. You went to watch Moremi at OAU Ife, and they are now adding VAT to the ticket. It's wrong. It's not vatable. And then all export services. Apart from all of these ones that I've mentioned, any goods or services, any goods you sell or any service you offer in Nigeria is vatable. So once you bill your customer, you are also expected to collect, in addition, 7.5% of the value of that goods or services as VAT. And so it is like a withholding tax. You hold onto it and then you remit to the appropriate, organ of the government. But the issue we have now is the validity of that law in itself. Let me not say validity of that law, absolutely. Anyway, that law was challenged by Rivers State government on the ground that the constitutional basis for making that law was not there for the federal government. Let me break it down so that you will understand better. In Nigeria today, any law that is made in Nigeria today derives its validity from the Constitution. The Constitution is the highest law in the land. And Section 1 of the Constitution provides that if there is any other law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution, that other law shall, to the extent of its inconsistency, be null and void. Now, any law that is made in Nigeria that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void. That's one. Two, any law that is made in Nigeria that does not really derive its validity, or that is not made pursuant to the provision of the Constitution, then it is invalid. Now, when you come to Section 4 of the Constitution, it talks about the legislative capacity to make law. Don't forget that in Nigeria today, we have three levels of government. We have, the federal, the state, and the local. Yes. Now, Section 4 of the Constitution grants the legislative power of the federation. Section 4 sub 1 of the Constitution says the legislative power, the power to make law for the order, for the peace, and for the good government of Nigeria is vested in the National Assembly, which comprises of both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Now, it now says further, when you go down to section 4 sub 3, that the power that is vested in the National Assembly to make law for the peace, good order, and good government in Nigeria in the National Assembly is to the exclusion of other level of government. And these ones that is to the exclusion of other level of government is as contained in the second, first part of the second schedule to the Constitution, which we call the exclusive legislative list. There are 68 items on that list. Those 68 items, what section 4 is saying in essence is that whenever the National Assembly makes law, it has to make law exclusively on those 68 items. No state in Nigeria can make law in those areas.
Can make imputes or
No, you can't.
Similar.
You can't even near it. You can't near it. Now, when you look at, I told you that there are 68 items there. When you look at items 58 and items number 59 on that list, it provides for the power of the National Assembly to make law with respect to stamp duties. That's, tax law with respect to stamp duties, taxation of incomes, profits, and capital gains. Take note, 4 things.
Those 4 items.
That those
very strong,
it says stamp duties, taxation of incomes, profits, and capital gains. Now, it is pursuant to these items 58 and 59 that the National Assembly, comprising of the Senate and the House of Representatives, made the Personal Income Tax Act, which is still in line with the power granted to them under the exclusive legislative list to make law with respect to taxation of incomes. It is also on the premise of that they made law with respect to companies' income tax. It still falls under income, taxation of incomes. It is pursuant to this that they make law with respect to petroleum profit tax. Although that has been unbundled now, we now have the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act. Although the tax aspect is still, very dear valid. Then it is also pursuant to this that they made the Stamp Duties Act. Now, what the Rivers State took the federal government to court on is a very simple thing, straightforward. It is on these items 58 and 59 of the Constitution. Now, the federal government went further to make the Value Added Tax Act. Now, the question of Rivers State government now is, you are given power, exclusive power, to make law with respect to taxation on items 58 and 59, covering stamp duties, taxation of incomes, profits, and capital gains. These 4 things does not include value-added tax. And there is none of these 4 things that you can interpret or extend to cover value-added tax. So it means that value-added tax was made without power. You do not have the power to make it. So that means whatever you have been collecting so far on value-added tax was being collected illegally. And they took the federal government, the Attorney General of the Federation, the FIRS to court, Federal High Court in Rivers. A lot of legal fireworks here and there, but we need not bother ourselves with too much of those technicalities. But the aspect that concerns us this morning, the bottom line was that the court agreed with Rivers State government that those provisions contained in items 58 and 59 does not cover value-added tax. Not only value-added tax now, there are even some other taxes, like for example, the Education Tax Act, which has now been turned to Third Fund Act, has been repealed and replaced with Third Fund Act, and so many other ones, which the federal government collect taxes on. So, and that was the decision of the Federal High Court, and that was why Rivers State said, okay, since the decision of the court is that you have no power to make a value-added tax, it means that we can make such act. Don't forget that the concurrent list, the exclusive list, is for the federal government alone. The concurrent list is for the combination, the both of them can make law on it. Unfortunately, value-added tax is also not contained on the concurrent list. So it means that anything that is not on the exclusive list, that is not on the concurrent list, is deemed to be residual. And so once it is residual, state has power to make law. And that's why Rivers State government has gone ahead to make that value-added tax law, so that they can collect. But the reason why we are now having so much uproar is because the money that is generated from VAT is so enormous that a state government may not even need to go for example, a Rivers State government and Lagos State government, where we have serious, economic activities in terms of production activities, where they can make serious money from value-added tax. They may not even need to go to the federal government to request for anything on a monthly basis again. And so you also understand the various political angles to it here and there, and you can see that Lagos quickly key into that and made their own law. So I think it was this that the federal government saw the danger, or the FIRS, that they quickly ran to the Court of Appeal, file an appeal and ask the court to grant them an injunction restraining suspension of the execution of that judgment pending the determination of the matter that is before the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal has done well because once these laws are made now by the state and they start collect, it may be difficult to reverse those things again. There will be serious clashes, and so where there is a recondite point of law, which is likely to be resolved in the favor of the other party, the Court of Appeal has the power to suspend the execution of that judgment pending the determination of the matter before the Court of Appeal.
Now, I have my own very great concern about the issue of VAT. When you look at the stand of the Rivers State government and the Lagos State government in the issue of VAT, now, according to data, almost 5.5 billion trillion naira generated on yearly basis from tax.
Yes.
Lagos and Rivers State alone combined generate 3 trillion naira out of that figure. Very enormous figure for the state. You can understand why Governor Wike is blowing so hot over the issue of VAT. But there's been a lot of talk, analysts back and forth. While some people say that the state government, at a period in time when states are clamoring for more devolution of power, clamoring for more inclusion, and also think in light of recent developments that people clamor that the federal government is taking too much of national pride. States are coming out. For the first time in many years, we see states being bold enough to ask for their own dues from the federal government.
Definitely.
So when we look at this huge pie called VAT, value added tax, taking into consideration also that we're at a period when state governments are clamoring for more allocation to fund their states. People are trying to point fingers at state governments now to get up and do something with their respective states. So the point of like this, at the eyes of the law, giving VAT to states, although there's been arguments that the federal government should, we'll come to that later, but then the state governments, if we take a cue from what you just said, that VAT is not on the concurrent list, and it's not also
on the exclusive list. So it means it falls on residual.
By law, do states have a right to collect VAT?
This is a very simple and straightforward matter.
Let's look at the argument of the federal government then and the Court of Appeal.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. Now, let me answer that one first. Very straightforward matter. Any matter that is not on the exclusive list, that is not on the concurrent, even if it's on the concurrent list, both the state and the federal can legislate on it. But if it is not there, and it means that it's a residual matter, and the state is at liberty to make law on any matter that falls on residual. There is actually nothing in the list called residual. There is no list called residual. But anything that is not on the exclusive, that is not on concurrent, is deemed to be residual. So the state have power to legislate on them. So there is no question at all as to whether the state has the power to legislate on VAT. Since the federal government, the Federal High Court has declared that the VAT as made by the National Assembly or as being enforced by the FIRS does not fall within the present of items 58 and 59 of the exclusive legislative list. Now, this one is a pure matter of law. Although to every issue, it is not only the law angle that you look at. Although we may have the political side, we may have this side, we may have that other side. Let's
do very well to stick to the issues of law because when we go back and forth, a lot of emotions and sentiments.
I understand. The
issue of VAT. But let's look at what the law actually says about the issue of collection of VAT.
Well, you see, before now, this law that was declared null and void by virtue of not being in that list. In Nigeria, we have, we have 3 levels of government, like that. We also have different agencies collecting tax for each of this level of the government. For example, for the federal government, we have we call them FIRS before, Federal Inland Revenue Service, with its operative arm. The operative arm is Inland Revenue Services, call them IRS. Now, all tax or all the taxes that are due to the federal government are collected by the Inland Revenue Services. Now, for the state government, we have what is called Internal Revenue Service of the state. They call them SIRS, State Internal Revenue Service. The difference is that for the federal is inland, for the state is internal. Now, every tax that is levied by the state or that is collected, the state is empowered to collect, is being handled by the Internal Revenue Service of each of the states. Each of the states have their own. We have our own in Ekiti at Okioriomi there. Now, at the local government level, they also have the collecting agencies. Although it's a pity that at the level of the local government, at times they farm this out to some consultants and all that, which raise the question as to whether those things remain taxes when they are being collected by special and private firms. Now, the value-added tax as was enacted, which we are debating here now, the collection was vested in the Inland Revenue Service. That is the FIRS before, the Inland Revenue Service. So they collect in each of the states, and that is why they have their offices in all of the states. So they collect that. And now that the question of whether the federal government can collect or not has been, determined against the federal government, if the state government goes ahead to enact their own, like the Rivers State and Lagos State has done, then it means that the power to collect will now be in their own internal revenue service. Yes, of course. So, which is very, very acceptable and very, very legal within the ambit of the framework of the Constitution.
Yeah. But then we see a situation where we see the appeal court asking all parties in that suit to maintain status quo.
Yeah.
Now, would you say the law is against itself? Because if we check, if we look at it, it's already stated, like you said earlier, if it's not in the concurrent and it's not in the executive, then it becomes a residual item. It's not something debatable. But then, would you say the law is acting against itself?
No.
When it also asked both parties
to hold on, to maintain status quo.
Also asking River State to discontinue the collection of revenues in the state.
Yeah, no, there is nothing odd in that. There is what we call procedural law in Nigeria.
Would you say the Constitution has anomalies?
No. In Nigeria, we have what is called substantive law. We have what is called procedural law. Now, this one you are asking has to do with procedural law. Now, the court is empowered to interpret the law, which the Federal High Court in Rivers State has done. Now, you will also need to understand that by way of judicial precedents in Nigeria, matters don't end in a single court. We have what is called appellate system. Now that the Federal High Court has given its judgment, it is not the final court when it comes to that matter. Federal government, the FIRS, the Attorney General, they are dissatisfied. They have gone and appealed to the Court of Appeal. Now, the procedural rule is that when you go on appeal to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal is still to decide whether the decision of the Federal High Court was right or was wrong. The Federal High Court still has the right, within its own power, to either uphold that judgment of the Federal High Court or to upturn it and then give judgment in favor of the federal government. Now, imagine that the Federal Court, the Court of Appeal, now, I'm not saying that is what it's going to be. Now, I'm just, let's just say, for whatever, happened, the judgment now goes in favor of the, federal government. And the state government has already enacted their own law. They have collected the money for like a year or maybe whatever period of time. Are they going to ask them to return that money to the federal government? It will not be easy. And that is why when there is a recondite point of law, and that's why I call recondite point of law the other time, and there is likelihood that if the judgment is given in favor of the other party, it will not be easy to reverse what has been done. Since that judgment of the lower court has been given, the Court of Appeal can ask both parties to maintain status quo ante bellum. That has been the situation before you came before the Federal High Court. Hold on until we give our own judgment, so that it won't seem as if what the Court of Appeal is to give judgment on, they are already doing it. It's like overreaching the court, or it's like foisting a fait accompli on the court. So that is the essence of that. It is not to say that it doesn't mean that the Court of Appeal can still not give judgment and say what the Federal High Court has said is the correct thing. And the Court of Appeal also may say it is the other way around. But so as to maintain some level of sanity or irreversible damage, that is why the Court of Appeal is saying it is a temporary measure. It is not a final. If the court of Appeal later decide that yes, the judgment of the Federal High Court is, then they go ahead with whatever they have been doing before.
According to your submission, Dr. Afolayan, if you listen to you now, it seems that the real baiting, the winner of this race seems to be the likely winner of this race seems to be the state government. Now, I'll take you back in time to all of these court rulings, and sometimes we've had analysts on the program say that the federal government is one of the major abusers of systems. Now, we look at our constitution. We look at the ground of our existence. We look at our constitution, then we take this major VAT, because when you look at these monies, now I'm taking you a little bit out of the court now.
I understand.
When you look at the extent and the sheer size of these monies accrued through VAT, will you say that the federal government has abused its powers or has overreached its powers from time immemorial? Now, do we see a time, if we in the event that the state government actually go through and the Supreme Court rules in favor of the state, do we get to a time where VAT is calculated from where it has been accumulated and reverted back to the states?
No, I don't think so.
So what do you think will happen?
I don't think the court is going to ask that if in the event that the Rivers State wins, I don't see the court asking the actually it wasn't even part of the relief, at the Federal High Court. So I don't see it's not as if Court of Appeal cannot do that, but I don't see it that way, because the court most likely we also want to look at the effect of his judgment on the polity. Don't forget that we are all still within the same political.
So you're saying that the court also will have to check the effect of his own.
Yes,
so you can decide to sway it either way.
Going that far, may not likely be the outcome.
I really like it to concur.
But you see,
there are times that the court is actually sentimental when it gets to cases like this.
No, the sentiment is different from law. Court does not rule on sentiment. But the other side is also that the court is also not a Father Christmas. The court will not award you what you have not asked for. It's a fundamental law, that what you have not seek, the relief you have not seek, the court will not grant to you. Let's say, for example, somebody slapped you, threw away your eggs, and then took your money. And when you went to court, you're asking the court to declare that he's slapping you is wrong, that I should pay you 2 million for that. That is throwing your eggs away. You are asking for special damages for that, 1 million naira. But you did not speak about your money that he took. And you are asking for only those two. The court is not likely to award you that money because you did not ask for it, because the court is not a Father Christmas. So what I'm saying in essence is that at the Federal High Court, the Rivers State government did not ask that all the VAT that has been collected from the beginning of Nigeria, they should. So it's not likely that the Court of Appeal will grant that. That's what I'm saying.
Now I'm going to pull you back a little into business. So on Monday we had Dr. Owoye from your colleague from the university, who argued that he feels that the federal government, well, that's his opinion. He feels that the federal government should be the sole administrator of VAT in the country, because he talked about something called displacement value. He said as goods and services, it will encourage the skyrocketing of price of goods and services, because it says as goods and services move up the ladder, they increase in value. So it's possible that when you buy bread in Lagos or buy a particular item in Lagos,
the cost may be higher than in Ekiti.
It's higher. If you go to Kano, you might be able to buy at 800 naira. So he says it will be a disparity of sorts. He also says that it will also render some states incapable. It will make them look very incapable. Because when you have a state like Lagos accrued to almost 3 trillion naira, we look at Ekiti now, our own state in the chain, and ask ourselves how much would we really be earning. So he says the government should be the correct to be the collector of these taxes and revenues. Then I asked a very particular question. We have states in the north. When we look at some of these value-added taxes, we have states in the north who have outlawed alcohol. And yet they get taxes. They are in the tax sharing formula.
Yeah.
They benefit for some of these products that they have also
Of
banned.
course, from the 50% that
From
goes to the
50%
states
that goes-
and the 35% that goes to
Exactly.
the local government.
So how fair is that system, that VAT system that we operate?
Well, let me answer your first question. I understand the opinion being expressed by, as a lawyer too, I may have my individual opinion, which is different from what the law says. And that is why at times, even we lawyers, we criticize the law. But you see, the business of the law is different from the business of sentiment. That the federal government should be in the best position to manage it, that they should be, it will skyrocket this, it will skyrocket that, is sentiment. As far as the court is concerned, it only interprets the law as contained, which I have stated this morning. That's what the law says, and so be it. If we, Nigerians, now look at the sentimental aspect and we said, no, it is not good like this, so then we should go back to the people that made the law. Okay, oh yeah, amend it now to say that the federal government should be the one to collect, state it specifically in item 58 and 59. Then it will be stated there, then we move on. So, but until that is done, that sentiment will hold no water. I hope you understand that. So that is that. Then on the other aspect too, that in the north we have some states that don't allow sale of alcohol, but yeah, they get, whatever from this. That may, in some senses, be a kind of, some people may see it as the justification for the court's decision. But that was not in any way mentioned in that judgment. It is still in the realm of sentiment. So that the court will not look at sentiment to deliver. The court only look at the law. And if what the law is, as of today, we see that law is made for man now, not man for the law. We see that it is not the way it should be. Then we simply go back to our legislator at the National Assembly. Oh yeah, help us to amend the Constitution to read that. Because if you want to change this now, you have to go back to the Constitution, which is the source, and amend that item 58 and 59 to include value added tax or sales tax as part of what the National Assembly has exclusive power. And don't forget that if you want to do that, that means we need 24 states to put their hand, to agree to that. So how a northern region with 19 states will be able to achieve 24 without including the south, I wait to see, or how the south of 17 will achieve 24 without carrying the north along, we're also waiting to see. So these are all in
I'm sure
the...
listeners at home also have contributions. I'd like to let phone lines open up. We can take one or two calls. 08039771069. That's 08039771069. You can also reach us, just join the conversation on 081-1198-1069. I'll take that again, 081-1198-1069. And Dr. Folayo, still talking about this value-added tax regime and all that. When we look at by law, states have certain amounts that accrue to them in value-added tax. Okay. Now, when we look at the entire governors forum, and we've seen only 2 states, what's the likelihood, do you think, that other states will not also join these suits? Let me take this call before I let you answer that. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Your name and where you're calling us from, please.
It's Mr. Francis from Agriculture.
Mr. Francis, your contributions, please. Questions.
Okay. The doctor has already said it. That we have procedural law, which have been is already trying to establish. You know, how does not allow the revenue, the tobacco, the beer to be selling not, but they are sharing from the VAT.
Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
No, it's very wrong. It's very wrong. This is simple. This is simple matter. You know, the states have the right to collect their VAT directly.
Thank you very much for your contributions there. I'd like to let the phone lines open once again. I'll read out the lines again. 08039771069. That's 08039771069. You can also reach us on 08111981069. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Your name and where you're calling us from, please.
My name is Abdul. I'm calling from Nigeria.
Your contributions, please.
Okay, please, I would like to commend you analysts for a job well done. You have educated us, you have given us a very sound information on education this morning. Now, for me, I believe that the federal government should collect facts because so that we can be able to control inflation. But that is not the major problem. The problem is because we like nothing and equity. Imagine Lagos getting 49 billion naira and being given 9 billion naira and can generating 2.8 billion naira and being given the same amount of money. The main problem is injustice. That is what we can do. Everybody is complaining. For me, there should be a division formula on that fact. Any state that generates the amount of money, give them 13%. And then we give them a good part of the money, just like we do for the Niger Delta in terms of oil money. So that's my own contribution.
Thank you very much for your contribution, sir. So, Doctor, that's a very, very lovely opinion there. I'd like you to react to that.
Well, I think that would be a very good suggestion to the National Assembly because pros or up or down, this thing will still go back to the National Assembly. I believe it will, and that would be a very good suggestion to the National Assembly. I believe they will also seek public opinion, what people think. But personally, I'm speaking from my personal opinion now. I would prefer, because over time, one of my strong points has been that there should be devolution of this power, this 68 item. We don't really have true federalism in Nigeria or fiscal federalism in Nigeria. States should be able to generate revenue. There is too much concentration of power in the hand of the federal government. They generate all the funds and they dish out as they like to the states. And this is leading to social injustice. Can't we, for once, get it right by allowing states? If any state now decide to misuse its own opportunity, the people of the state are there to take it up with their governor and whoever. This idea of every state going to Abuja at the end of every month to collect, I don't believe it's the best for our system.
We have other callers. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Your name and where you're calling us from, please.
This is Adebayo calling from Paju.
Adebayo, your contributions or questions, please.
Yeah. I just want to quickly react to what the analyst actually talked about. I think it's actually a nice opinion for me, and he actually educated us much about the position of the regarding it. And to me, I actually believe that the position of experts regarding that issue is actually sound, and we actually can serve as a nice precedent or other case related to that. And I don't see the court of appeal negating that. I think they will actually follow suit in probably the same. Because the thing is that we have to look at it from the point of law, not from sentimental view, as the speaker already said. So, and if we are to actually change the law or to alter the law or to amend the constitution, it's actually more cumbersome and more complicated than we could actually imagine. So, for some years to come, I think that would be the way it will actually be. And the court of appeal will be shortly noted based on that. But it's actually a nice point from the last one.
Thank you very much for your contributions there. Dr. Folayan, if we want to see a scenario where the state government could win this case, now certain laws, how easy would it be to change some of these laws? I'm taking this, this picture I want to paint now is that we look at the concurrent list, we look at the executive list and the residual list. What if we had a situation where we had to change some of these items and switch some of these powers to the state level? How hard would it be? How cumbersome would it be?
I don't see any difficulty in that. Once the decision of the court stands to the end, you will see the states are already taking steps. Ogun State is already making its own VAT law now. You will discover that if this judgment stands till the end, states will have to adjust. In fact, you will now realize that most states have been lazy in their approach to collection or to enhancing the collection of value-added tax. Most people evade value-added tax because, it is something. The focus majorly is Rivers and Lagos. This is where they generate most of this money. It is not as if this money cannot be generated from other states. Why do you think the North is outlawing, made it an outlaw to sell alcohol? Because they know whatever they have to generate will still come from. But once they see that these things they are destroying is their source of revenue, they will stop destroying it. They will change some of their laws which is very, very, harsh on alcohol and all that. Or probably they will not change that law, then they will focus on other areas where they can also generate their own value-added tax from. And don't forget that states are not restricted to value-added tax alone. I've just told you that there are so many other tax acts that will still come up for debate and that the state will still have to legislate upon, which has been taken away by that judgment from the FIRS or from the federal government. So definitely all of these things, they are coming back to the state. States will wake up and you will see states making waves, generating money rather than wait for the
Let
state.
me take this first phone call. Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling us from, please.
My name is Bruno from Majesty.
Your contributions, please.
Some accountancy, all can be taken because I don't know what case my hand are tied is political. In the case we are talking of now, the case cannot be because those people that are majority, that are benefiting from this thing, they are the non-owners, and they are those people that are in power. That is why we need self-determination. God bless you.
Thank you very much for your contributions there. Now, taking a cue from that caller, I was about to ask, would you be surprised if the federal government wins the case against the state governments?
I will be surprised. Although anything can happen, but I will be surprised because we are talking about law now. I've read that judgment by the Federal High Court, in Rivers and the federal government. I've read it. I'm not saying that the Court of Appeal cannot reason from another angle, but I also saw some soundness in that judgment. I'm a tax law. My core area is tax law because I've always seen that disconnect between value-added tax. You see, whenever I teach in class, and I teach items 58 and 59, which is on the exclusive legislative list. And I mentioned Personal Income Tax Act, Company Income Tax Act, Petroleum Profit Tax, Capital Gain Tax. That is where my mind stops when it comes to the areas that the federal government really have power to make tax legislation based on items 58 and 59. I really, as a person, have no justification for why the federal government made law on value-added tax act, because there is a disconnect between the exclusive legislative list and that particular act. So, but as a lecturer, you have to teach the law as it is. So most of the time, just keep quiet on those. Not that we cannot criticize it, but I'm glad that this is coming to it grows our jurisprudence. Even if that is all we achieved at the end of the day, then our jurisprudence is growing. Then probably we will be able to, approach things differently in Nigeria.
Hello, good morning. Your name and where you're calling us from, please. Your contributions, please,
If any judge or court of law will judge the federal government right on this value-added tax, another way of impoverishing the citizen. Neither of the state to collect the value-added tax. This added tax we are talking about, if we have to distinguish the government, this is a simple matter. Like law reform, all these things under the contrary. It's under full federalism or regional government. No, let us see 1963 Constitution. During the flood of Awolowo and Northerner. We have a weak center. We have weak federal government. Only the regional that are sending money to the center. To develop the center and the state capital. Are you getting it? So, if we structure or two federalism is allowed in Nigeria, all this value-added tax is under it. That the state will be collecting their own, then the next people is going to federal government. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your contributions there. Well, let's hope we get to a time. I'm sure with much of the matter, the issues raised on the matter, I'm sure the government will also smile when if this is eventually handed over to them, even though we believe that the federal government is actually the big brother and can most of power at that level. But then states like Rivers State and Lagos State, they're clamoring for that fund. They believe that to also add to the social economic development of your state. I'd like to say thank you very much, Dr. Afolayan, for making time out to join us in the studio this morning. Here's something that when we call you some other time, you'll be able to tell us our rights from our wrongs and what exactly the law says about some of these issues. I'd like to say thank you very much once again, Dr. Michael Afolayan, legal practitioner, notary public, and head of the Department of Business and Industrial Law Ekiti State University. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here this morning. Thank you.
And I think it's people need to understand most of the time what some of these things matter.
Yeah.
A lot of Nigerians are not even interested in what some of these tax matters are and how it affects them properly. But let's hope that with the state government, Georgia, with the federal government, we'll start to get more knowledge about tax issues.
Definitely.
Well, that's much we can take on today's edition of Viewpoint on Fresh 106.9 FM. Here's join us again on Friday for another edition of the program. I'm Bamidele Okonla, asking you to have a very lovely Wednesday morning. And always keep listening to the #1 radio station in Ekiti State. I'm talking about none other than Fresh 106.9 FM. Do have a lovely Wednesday morning.